Good morning, everyone. It's Diego over here. I hope everyone is doing well and that quarantine hasn't been too rough on anyone. Can't wait to go back to school and see everyone and hear all about your guys' quarantines. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to do a quick review of the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary sectors of the economy. And I'm going to try and provide as many examples as possible in relation to those sectors and the Spanish economy, so it makes a little bit more of sense, okay? So what we're going to do, I'm going to go through each sector, and then I'm going to pose some questions at the end of the video that I want you to think about, and are going to help you to really understand these sectors so you're prepared for an exam or any kind of worksheet that your teachers might send to you concerning this unit, okay? So let's start. We're going to start with the primary sector, okay? The primary sector involves getting raw materials and finding that you find in nature, such as natural resources, okay? So let's start with the definition. What is a raw material? So a raw material is any kind of material that you find in nature that you can use. For example, a raw material would be wood, a tree, a forest. There's a forest with a bunch of trees. You cut the trees, you get the tree trunk, which is the lumber, and you use that to produce other products. But the industry or the jobs that cut down the tree and they cut the branches, cut the roots, and they just keep the lumber, the trunk, that is the primary sector of the economy, okay? And that is a raw material also, okay? So we have forestry, that's an example of a primary sector, and the act of cutting down the trees to get that wood and use it to make a product, that's called deforestation. That's when they cut down the forests, okay? What's another kind of industry in the primary sector? We have farming. Farming is really important. If you go to different farms in Spain, you'll see cattle, you'll see animals. All of that is primary sector. Agriculture, okay? Now, here's where I'm going to give you an example. These are tomatoes, okay? The agricultural activities that are involved for planting the tomatoes and reaping the tomatoes, that is part of the primary sector. Another one are mandarins or oranges. If you go to Valencia and you go down the street, downtown Valencia, you see all these trees in the boulevards and also in the side streets, and there are all these orange trees that are filled with oranges, and they're even on the ground. Why? Because the Mediterranean climate and the climate of Valencia is very rich, okay? And oranges grow in that kind of climate, in the Mediterranean climate. So Valencia, since they have a lot of orange trees and they have the climate for it, they produce a lot of oranges. And it's one of the biggest industries in Valencia, and they export oranges all over the world. They're called Valencian oranges. If you go to a grocery store or a supermarket in the United States, you'll find these kinds of oranges. Okay, that is another example of the primary sector. So what I want you to do is look at the map of Spain that you see in your book, okay, on page 56. You have a map of Spain with different pictures of what they represent in different regions. I want you to think about each region of Spain, autonomous community, Galicia, Andalusia, Valencia, Basque Country, Cantabria, Catalonia, Castilla y León, Castilla-La Mancha. I want you to think about all these regions and what are their primary sectors. What are their most important primary sector industries? For example, Andalusia. If you go to Andalusia and you're driving down the highway and you look to both sides of the highway, you'll see thousands of acres of olive trees, okay? They produce olives, okay? And then they use that olives to make a product. And that's what we're going to talk about next, because that's the secondary sector. The secondary sector is when you use the materials, the raw materials from the primary sector, and you convert them to make a product, okay? You process it to make something else. You use manufacturing, factories, different things to produce these products, okay? There are heavy industries and there are light industries, okay? They sound hard, but they're very easy. Just think about the name. Heavy industries is any industry that you need a lot of machinery that it's very heavy. So for example, petrochemicals, metals, shipbuilding, all of that, okay? Light industry is when you don't need a lot of machinery. Textiles, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, electronics, foods. You don't need a lot of machinery to produce these. You need some, but not the very complicated, super expensive machinery. Also, remember that I talked about Andalusia and how olive trees are very, they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous in Andalusia. Why? Why are there a lot of olive trees? Why would they want so many olives? Olive oil. Spanish olive oil, the best in the world. So, they produce olive oil. Italy is another country that produces a lot of olives. California also produces a lot of olive oil. Why? Because they're in Mediterranean climate. California has Mediterranean climate, even though it's on the other side of the world, but that's another topic. So, they produce olive oil, okay? For their tomatoes, their toast, pan tumaca, they eat in the breakfast, all of that. You put it in a salad, delicious. So, that's an example of a secondary sector. Primary sector, olive trees, olives. Secondary sector, they produce olive oil. Remember when I talked about